Hi, third grade mathematicians. It's Mrs. Moore here, and today I get to teach you the second lesson in our area and perimeter unit. By the end of this lesson, boys and girls, you will be able to determine the perimeter of a shape. I would like for you to participate in this lesson with me. So please get out a piece of paper or a notebook so that you can solve problems with me throughout this lesson. Please also get out your math packet if you have one. As always, we will begin this lesson by reviewing what you learned during our last lesson. During yesterday's lesson, what did we learn about? Yes, we learned all about area and how to determine the area of any rectangle. Pause the video and just remind me, what is area and what are area word problems? Third graders, were you able to tell me that area is the total amount of space covered by a shape or the number of square units inside a shape? I hope you were also able to remember that we find area by multiplying the length and the width of a rectangle. So we would multiply 5 inches times 3 inches to determine the total number of square inches inside this shape. Boys and girls, I have one more task for you. Would you just jot down on your paper a list of rectangular objects that you can see or that you can think of that you could determine the area of by multiplying their lengths times their widths? Incredible. So I know I could find the area of a carpet by multiplying its length times its width, or a rectangular garden, or a table, or even a mini pool, or a picture frame, or a comforter that's a rectangle. What else did you think of? Yes, like curtains for a rectangular window. Those are all perfect examples. I would like to review one more thing that we know that's going to help us be really successful finding the perimeter of objects and shapes today. So we know quite a bit about geometric shapes from our geometry unit. Specifically, I would like us to focus on rectangles and squares today. You know that rectangles and squares are both parallelograms. What are parallelograms? You're exactly right. Parallelograms are quadrilaterals with 2 pairs of parallel sides. You know that both rectangles and squares have 4 right angles. What are right angles? Yes, I hope you're running your finger along the edge of your paper right in the corner, because you know a right angle is where 2 perpendicular straight lines meet or come together. But most importantly, rectangles have opposite sides that are equal length, and squares have all sides that are equal lengths. So I would like you to pause the video and draw both of these quadrilaterals, and would you please label all of the rectangle side lengths and all of the square side lengths? Wonderful job. Were you able to tell me that for this rectangle, I know that side C would be 7 meters because side A is 7 meters, and we know that they're equal because opposite side lengths are equal. If this side length, side B, was 2 meters, what would side D be? Wonderful, it would also be 2 meters. What about for this square? I know that side A is 6 centimeters, and I know a characteristic of squares is that all of their sides are equal. So I hope that you labeled that then side B, C, and D would also be 6 centimeters. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Way to apply the knowledge that you already know. Oh my goodness, I'm excited because we have really important new learning today. Our new learning today, boys and girls, is perimeter. We're going to determine the perimeter of shapes. Perimeter is the total distance around a shape. So we find the perimeter of a shape by carefully adding up all of the side lengths of a shape. And this represents the total distance around the entire shape. Perimeter is also very relevant to your daily life. You will likely solve some perimeter problems later as a student and as an adult. So if I wanted to find the perimeter of this shape, I would very carefully add all of the side lengths. So I know I would add 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1, and that would tell me the total distance around the shape. So I know 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 2 more is 5, plus 1 more is 6. So I know the perimeter around this shape is 6 feet. I'm going to read you a story problem that is a perimeter word problem. Mrs. Moore wants to put a border around her rectangular welcome wall at school. One length is 4 feet and the other side length is 6 feet. How much border will she need to purchase? So I want to show you that we will answer perimeter problems in our real life. So I know I could determine the perimeter by asking how much fencing I would need to go around my garden. I could ask how big of a fence I would need to go around a pool, or how much border I would need for my welcome wall. Keywords that tell you a problem is a perimeter problem are words like length, width, inches, feet, centimeters, meters, yards, miles, edge, around, fencing, border, or outside, because perimeter applies to only the outside of a shape. It's the total distance around the outside of the shape. That's why I highlighted just the outside of the shape, because the outside of the shape is the perimeter. A perimeter is the total distance around a shape. This is how Mrs. Moore remembers what perimeter means. You notice that perimeter has the word rim in it. Perimeter, we know, is the distance around the shape, and a rim is the outer edge or border of something, especially a circular objects like a mug. Or the rim of our recycle bin would just be the outside edge or border of our recycle bin. So I remember rim as the distance around a shape or the outer edge or border of a shape. Lock that in your brain, please. So last time you learned all about how to determine the area. You know the area is the space covered by a shape. So area is the space covered. That's why I filled this in, because area is the total space covered by an entire shape. Perimeter is much different. Perimeter is just the distance around a shape. The total distance around the outside edge of an object. So we know that area and perimeter are very different. Pause the video and be ready to tell me how area and perimeter are different. You're exactly right. Well, the area refers to the space covered, the amount of square units within a shape. Perimeter is much different. Perimeter is only the total distance around a shape. Another way that they're different is we find perimeter by carefully adding the side lengths together, and that tells us the total distance around a shape. Area is different. We find the space covered by an object simply by multiplying the length times the width. They're much different. Okay, I'm really excited because today we get to determine the perimeter or the distance around shapes together. I'm going to model this one to you, and then you'll get to do a bunch with me. So I know perimeter is the total distance around a shape. We find perimeter by very carefully adding side lengths together. So I know that this shape is a quadrilateral, and specifically it's a rectangle. Let's use what we know about rectangles to determine these missing side lengths. So I know a rectangle is a parallelogram. So if this side length is 5 inches, what is its opposite parallel side? Pause the video. Yes, it's also 5 inches. If this side length is 3 inches, its opposite parallel side is also 3 inches. Fantastic. I want you to imagine perimeter as me taking a string and lining it up along the outside edges of this shape, of the entire shape. So pretend that this yellow line is a string. The perimeter would be the total length of the entire string that fit around the outside edges of this rectangle. So I know to find the perimeter, I need to add up each side length. So you'll notice that down here, I took the string and I stretched it out to show the distance of each side length. If I add each side length together very carefully, that will tell me the total perimeter, or the total distance around the shape. So I need to add 5 plus 3 plus 5 plus 3, and that will tell me the total distance around the entire shape, or the perimeter of the shape. All I want to know is the total distance in inches around the shape. So I have to carefully add each side length. So to find perimeter, you add side length plus side length plus side length plus side length. And that tells you the total distance around the shape. Let's do that together. So I would add 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5. Would you guys please write that on your paper and determine what is the total perimeter of those side lengths? Add them very carefully. You're exactly right. You know, when you add multiple add-ins, you try to find the most efficient way to add those add-ins. So you would add 5 plus 5, which you know is 10, plus 3 more, which you know is 13, plus 3 more, which you determined was 16. So I know the total distance around the shape was 16 inches, and I determined that perimeter by carefully adding each side length. Let's do another one together. Well, for this one, the side lengths aren't listed. They're not shown. We have to determine the side lengths. So I know I determine perimeter by very carefully adding together all of the side lengths. That tells me the total distance around. So let's start at this endpoint and go to this endpoint to determine this side length by counting the square units. So I know this side length is 1 square unit, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 units. Awesome. So I know right away, since it's a rectangle, that its opposite parallel side is the same length. So pause the video and tell me, what would this side length be? You're exactly right. It would also be 7 units. What is this side length, boys and girls? Yes, it's only 1 square unit. What about its opposite parallel side? Well, you know it would be the exact same. So let's pretend again that this yellow line is the string that Mrs. Moore used to determine the perimeter. She very carefully lined this string up along the edge of the shape to determine the total distance around the shape. Okay, then she stretched it out to show each side length. So you'll see 1 is on there, 7, 1, and 7. Okay, so perimeter is this total distance. So to find the perimeter, I know I need to very carefully add each side length. Would you please, on your scratch paper, Would you please very carefully add each of the side lengths together? Thank you. Wonderful job. So you would have added 7 plus 1 plus 7 plus 1. A way that could help you is I know 7 plus 7 is 14 because 7 times 2 or 7 2 times is 14. Plus 1 more is 15 plus 1 more is 16. Yes, so the total distance around this shape is 16. Let's also check our work since there are square units by counting each of the square units on the edges of this shape. So 1, and I'm going to remember I started right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to start on this edge. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So if square units are provided, you can always check your work by very carefully counting them. Okay, let's do another one together. So boys and girls, let's determine the perimeter of this square. Pause the video and please on your scratch paper, draw this square. Thank you. So on your scratch paper, you should have a square that matches the square on my screen. So, what is perimeter? Say it with me. The total distance around a shape. Perimeter is found by adding up all of the side lengths, and that represents the total distance around the shape. So you'll notice that these side lengths are missing. But this shape, this quadrilateral, is classified as a square. So would you please pause the video and write down all of the side lengths of this square? Fantastic. Were you able to remember that, of course, each side length would be 2 feet because a characteristic of squares is that all of their side lengths are equal. So to find the total perimeter, what would you do, boys and girls? I'm going to let you find the perimeter of this square on your own. Fantastic. Yes, you know that the perimeter is just the total distance around the edge or rim of a shape. So you would just carefully add together each side length. And I showed you the string version down here. If I cut this string and stretched it out, I know if I measured it, it would tell me the total perimeter. So did you guys add each side length together very carefully? Did you add 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2? What did you get as the perimeter of this shape, third graders? Wonderful, it's 8 feet. And you'll notice that perimeter is just measured in feet. We didn't measure it in square feet because it's not the space covered. It's just the total distance around. And so we just measure it in regular units. Thank you so much. So for your assignment today, you will get to determine the perimeter of different rectangles. What you will do is you will carefully add each side length together. You will notice that I completed the first 2 assignments for you to help you out. So the first task was to find the perimeter of this square. So I know that there are missing side lengths, but I know to determine perimeter, I need to add all of the side lengths together. So on my scratch paper, I drew the square and I wrote in that these 2 remaining side lengths were also 4 centimeters. And then I just very carefully added 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, because that tells me the perimeter or the total distance around just the edge of the shape. So I know the perimeter of this square is 16 centimeters. And I put in parentheses how I solved it. 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. I carefully added all of the side lengths. For this one, it was very similar, but you'll notice that none of the side lengths were provided, but the square units are visible, so I can just very carefully count them. So I know that this side length is 3, and since this shape is a square, all of the remaining side lengths are also 3. So I would just carefully add 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, which I know is 12 units. And I can check by very carefully counting. So I'm going to put a dot right at the side length where I started. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Fantastic. You will complete the remaining rectangles by yourself today. I cannot wait to see you carefully add each side lengths to determine the perimeter or the distance around the edges of these shapes. Thank you for your fantastic listening. I cannot wait to see your work today, third graders.